So 3 hosts. Who takes charge? Because, you know, it's important to have a first. I know the answer, but I got to ask anyway. So let me ask that, Lethal. Did it come naturally for you to take lead, guide the conversation, throw questions to your co-hosts, or is it something that kind of had to take strategic planning, call a few plays, try a few things out here and there?
I would say it came naturally. And I am trying to be more strategic moving forward about keeping them involved in the conversation, because sometimes there are topics that like I could carry by myself, and then I'll realize that I've been talking a lot and they haven't. So it came naturally for me to take lead, but I have been trying to work on fine tuning how I go about that so I keep everybody involved.
It takes practice. Go ahead, S-Pain.
Oh, for sure. No, I was just gonna say that there's topics like mostly at the beginning too, when Jurassica and I were not really doing our research as much as we should have. So it also falls on us. It's not just her. So she would take lead because we really didn't know.
Yeah.
But if we've known each other for like 4 or 5 years, so if there's a topic that we all know, we can carry it on forever. So.
And because we know each other so well, sometimes it's really, I've learned how to ask a certain question to where even if they don't know about the topic specifically, I can ask something to where they can comment.
Yeah.
So like there's an episode that hasn't been released yet where I was talking about Odell Beckham Jr. and what people were saying about where he may or may not end up. At the time, it was not sure. People weren't sure if he was going to be released and be able to go to another team. And, you know, some people were saying like, oh, well, he's a diva, yada, yada, yada. And so I was talking about that whole situation. I could tell Jurassica wasn't really up to speed on what was going on. And so I just turned to her and I was like, well, let me ask you, if you had to choose between maintaining a certain team culture and picking somebody who was, you know, a middle of the road athlete versus taking an elite athlete, but they could possibly ruin the culture, like how would you make that decision? And so even though she wasn't up to speed on the OBJ situation, that was something she could easily answer. And so we were able to keep the conversation going that way.
That's the secret of being a host. That's the secret of being a first mic is knowing your co-hosts. And you know, like when you're first starting, if it's like say like for some God forbid Jurassic like left the show and you got to bring someone else on, right? That happens. It happened in my podcast. Like when you bring in someone new as a first mic, you got to make sure you know how to throw questions to them. So like if you're hosting, it's be like, okay, you know, you ask a question, you go, okay, Murphy, what do you think, right, or whatever. And eventually, as you build a chemistry, you as a second mic and a third mic, you know when to speak and you know when to listen. And every now and then you interrupt each other. Like I'll be like, "Oh, fuck you, Ricky, it's my time," right? And, you know, you make a bit of it, you make a joke about it. But you know, as a first mic, it really is your responsibility. But SP, I'm glad you brought that up too. It does fall on your co-host as well because it is a team effort. You do have to work cohesively, and that chemistry you can't teach. But it does come over time.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I'm very appreciative because she knows me too well too. So she knows exactly, like sometimes she just looks at me and she's like, let me just show you a picture. And she just would pull it up, you know, and like, or whatever, you know, like, and she just like, she knows exactly how to bring me back in. So it's, if you don't like, now you know, but if you don't know, you don't notice that. It's so seamless. It's perfect.
And the three of you record in person every week?
Yes.
That also helps.
Well, it's not always all three of us. Usually Jurassica has something else to do.
Yes. And she's a teacher, right? She got a day plan for the next day, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So being three of you, being sports, y'all gotta argue. How often do you argue? I mean, I'm not mean like by the podcast. I mean on sports topics, like on the actual show itself about content.
I think that happens that often.
No,
really.
Even times where I thought we were going to end up arguing, we didn't. Like there have been times I've been making the notes. I've been like, "Ooh, S-Pain gonna say this," and then I'm gonna say such and such. But then by the time we have the actual conversation, it's just like I don't know. It's very chill.
Yeah, there's been a couple of times. I don't know if it's because I'm Spaniard, but I get very passionate about whatever it may be at the time. but and I get louder, my accent gets thicker, and then I lose completely what I'm saying sometimes. So I just have to say, like, you know what? Let's just change the topic. Let's move on because we're not going anywhere with this. So it's yeah.
Yeah. More often than not, we get mad together.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
For the most part, yes.
She'll express it in a different way than I do, but yeah, usually if we're arguing with somebody, it's that hypothetical person out there, and like we're on the same side.
Okay. You know, that's great and all, but I'm not gonna lie. As a viewer, if I have two people just going, I love a good argument in a podcast. I love when two hosts just clash heads. That's like, you know, my podcast. We've had a few really heated arguments. One time, like I was literally so mad. I was like, "Fuck this!" Cut the podcast off early. Signed off. Didn't talk to him until the next week. You know, like it was real. It was a real argument. But you know, I cooled off. We talked about it the next day. We made a bit out of it. So et cetera, et cetera. But that kind of content is the best content, in my opinion. I love it when we argue about something because it's real, and you know it's about wrestling, so it doesn't really matter. You know, like, we're not arguing about like a student loan payment, or like my grandfather's sick. You know, it's not something that actually matters. But and as a listener, I love listening to people argue because it's like, oh, what's going on? I gotta listen. Is this real? Like, what's gonna happen? You know, it's just like it's juicy.
Oh,
I agree, actually, and it's like we've talked about incorporating that, but we just haven't found anything that's led to that kind of conversation.
Jurassic and I have not like being on an episode in a few episodes, but she's a Cowboys hater, so there's gonna be some.
Yeah, once she starts coming around more consistently, that'll probably be a thing.
All right,
it's gonna be a thing. I'm gonna make it.
Lethal, here's what you do. You take charge, right? Here's what you do. You lie. You put you create an argument. You play the other side just to take the other side. I'm telling you, don't tell anyone. I've done it and it works and it's amazing. Because in the back of you, you're working yourself. Because in the back of your head, you're like, oh, these dumb motherfuckers. Like they didn't even know I'm on their side. But it's to play devil's advocate, and I'm telling you, it'll work. Hey, it's me again. See you in the clip. Thanks for making it. Seriously though, try faking an argument with your co-hosts. It does work. I'm telling you, it's great. If you want to check out the Bitches Love Sports podcast, links in the description down below. More from the Ambiguous podcast solution, links in the description down below. Like this video. Hit the dislike. I won't see it, but you can still hit if you want. You didn't like it. I mean, helps you out in one way or the other, I guess. So, yeah. See you next time. Thanks for listening, watching, supporting. You know. Cool.